Imagine waking up tomorrow and discovering that you have $5 million sitting in your investment accounts. You don't quit your job, you don't buy a mansion, you don't post anything online, you don't tell your friends, you still drive the same car, you still live in the same neighborhood, and for a while, absolutely nothing changes. Until one person finds out. Then, something strange happens. They don't just see you differently, they start treating you differently. And the most uncomfortable part is that sometimes they don't even realize they're doing it, because becoming rich doesn't just change what you can afford, it changes what people think you are worth. And once people know how much money you have, they start making assumptions about everything else: your intelligence, your confidence, your priorities, your generosity, even your personality. So what actually happens when people realize you're rich? Let's follow one person through the different stages of wealth and see how the people around him slowly begin to change. Stage 1. Nobody knows. At the beginning, you're just another person trying to figure life out. You earn a normal income, you worry about rent, you think twice before buying something expensive. An unexpected $1,000 bill isn't catastrophic, but it definitely gets your attention. Your friends know approximately what you earn, your family knows you're doing okay, and nobody treats you differently because there's nothing to treat differently. This is what financial invisibility feels like. You're not poor enough for people to worry about you, you're not rich enough for people to wonder what they can get from you. You're simply normal. And there's actually something powerful about that. People have to interact with you mostly based on who you are. If you're funny, they laugh. If you're reliable, they trust you. If you're annoying, they avoid you. Your bank balance doesn't enter the conversation. But then you start building wealth. Quietly. You save, you invest, you avoid lifestyle inflation. You make a few decisions that look boring from the outside. Years pass, and eventually something happens that you never expected. You become wealthy. Not "I can afford a nice vacation" wealthy. Actually wealthy. Maybe you have $1 million, maybe $5 million, maybe $20 million. But here's the strange part. You don't necessarily feel rich. You still remember the person you were before the money. You still remember checking your bank account before buying something. You still remember worrying about bills. Your brain doesn't instantly update just because your portfolio did. And that's where the story gets interesting, because the first person to notice your wealth may not be you. It might be someone else. Stage 2. The first person finds out. Maybe a friend sees your house. Maybe someone discovers what your business is worth. Maybe they accidentally see an investment statement. Or maybe you simply buy something that makes people curious. At first, nothing happens. Then comes the question, wait, how much are you actually worth? You laugh, you try to change the subject, but now they've seen behind the curtain, and something subtle happens. The conversation changes. Before, you were just the friend who happened to have a good career. Now, you're the rich friend. That's a tiny label, but labels change behavior. Suddenly, your friends may assume that certain expenses don't matter to you. Dinner costs $300. It's fine, he can afford it. Someone needs help paying a bill? Maybe he can help. A business idea needs funding? Maybe he'll invest. You haven't changed, but the mental calculation happening inside other people's heads has changed. Before, $1,000 was $1,000. Now they see $1,000 as something that barely matters to you. And that difference can create the first crack in a relationship. Stage 3. People start asking. The requests usually don't arrive dramatically. They start small. Can you spot me? Can you cover this? Can I borrow a little? It's just until next month. And sometimes you happily help. That's what makes it complicated. Because generosity feels good. You have the ability to solve problems that other people can't. But eventually, something changes. You notice that some people only contact you when they need something. A friend who disappeared for 6 months suddenly calls. A distant relative suddenly wants to reconnect. Someone you barely knew suddenly has a business opportunity. And somehow, Every opportunity seems to require your money. This is when wealthy people often discover something uncomfortable. Money doesn't just attract opportunities, it attracts expectations. People may not think, he has money, so I should take advantage of him. Instead, they think, he has plenty, so helping me shouldn't hurt him. Those two thoughts sound similar, but they're completely different. And that's why wealthy people can find themselves saying no more often. Not because they're less generous, because they realize that constantly solving other people's financial problems can become its own financial problem. Stage 4. Your no sounds different. This might be one of the biggest changes. When you were broke, saying no sounded like, I can't afford that. People understood. You had a reason. But when you're rich, saying no sounds different. I don't want to. And people may not accept that answer as easily. Because if you can afford something, people often assume you should do it. You can afford the expensive dinner, so why don't you pay? You can afford the vacation, so why are you staying home? You can afford to help, so why aren't you? Your financial freedom can create an expectation that you should use your money to make everyone else comfortable. And suddenly, your ability to say no becomes one of your most important forms of freedom. Because wealth gives you options, but those options mean very little if everyone else gets to decide how you use them. Stage 5. People start treating you with more respect. But it's not all negative. Something else happens when people discover you're wealthy. Some people respect you more. And this can happen even when they know almost nothing about how you made the money. Your opinion suddenly carries more weight. A business idea that sounded ridiculous yesterday becomes interesting today. A financial opinion that nobody listened to suddenly becomes advice. You say something in a meeting, everyone listens. You recommend something, people ask why. You walk into a room, people notice. The strange part, you may be the exact same person. The only thing that changed was the information they had about you. This reveals something uncomfortable about human psychology. We don't always evaluate people independently. We use shortcuts. Money can become one of those shortcuts. People may unconsciously associate wealth with competence. If someone is rich, they assume they must know what they're doing. But that's obviously not always true. Someone can inherit $50 million and know almost nothing about investing. Someone else can build a $50 million company through decades of discipline and extraordinary skill. From the outside, both people are simply rich, and yet people may treat both as if they possess the same level of wisdom. That's one of the hidden powers of wealth. It can create an aura of competence around you, even when you haven't earned that particular reputation. Stage 6. Your friends start comparing. Then, something more personal begins to happen. Your friends start comparing their lives to yours, not necessarily consciously, but they notice things. You don't worry about layoffs. You can take 3 months off. You can leave a bad job. You can move cities. You can say no to opportunities you don't like. You have something they don't. Options. And options are one of the most visible forms of wealth. You might not own a Lamborghini. You might not wear expensive clothes. You might not even look rich. But when something goes wrong, you have somewhere to land. That difference can create uncomfortable emotions. Some friends become genuinely happy for you. Others become inspired. And some become resentful, not because you did anything wrong, because your freedom reminds them of their own constraints. This is one of the hardest things about becoming wealthy. You can celebrate your friend's success, but you can't always control what your success makes them feel. Stage 7. The relationship test. Eventually, money becomes a test. Imagine 2 friends. They've known each other for 20 years. They grew up together. They struggled together. Then, one becomes wealthy. The wealthy friend starts paying for everything. At first, it feels generous. Then the other friend starts expecting it. Dinner? He pays. Vacation? He pays. Emergency? He pays. Eventually, the relationship stops feeling equal, and that's dangerous because friendship isn't supposed to be a transaction. But when there's a massive difference in wealth, keeping a relationship emotionally equal can become surprisingly difficult. The poorer friend may feel embarrassed. The richer friend may feel used. Both may start behaving differently, and nobody talks about it until the friendship slowly disappears. This is why some wealthy people become extremely private about money, not because they're ashamed of being rich, because they want to know who would still treat them exactly the same if the money disappeared tomorrow. Stage 8. Family gets complicated. Friends aren't the only ones who change. Family can be even more complicated because family members often feel entitled to ask questions that strangers wouldn't. How much do you actually have? Are you going to help your brother? Why doesn't mom have a better house? Can't you just pay for it? And the most difficult part is that these questions aren't always unreasonable. If you have millions of dollars, helping your parents makes perfect sense. Helping a sibling through a genuine crisis may be the right thing to do. But there's a difference between helping someone and becoming their permanent financial system. Once you become the wealthiest person in the family, you can accidentally become the family's bank. And banks have customers. Customers have expectations. Expectations create obligations, and obligations can quietly destroy relationships. Stage 9. The richer you become, the more people assume. At $100,000, people may think he's doing well. At $1 million, he's rich. At $10 million, he can afford anything. At $100 million, he lives in a completely different world. Notice what happened. Your actual spending habits may not have changed nearly as much as people's perception of you. That's because wealth is relative. If you have $10 million and live like someone with $100 million, you're still rich. But people may look at your ordinary lifestyle and think you're hiding something. If you drive an old car, they may think you're extremely disciplined. If you drive an expensive car, they may think you're showing off. If you give money away, you're generous. If you don't, you're selfish. Once people know you're rich, almost every financial decision becomes open to interpretation, and that's exhausting. Stage 10. The world starts selling to you. There's another change people don't talk about enough. Once you're visibly wealthy, you become a target for sales, not necessarily scams, real businesses, private investments, luxury services, exclusive memberships, financial products, real estate deals, business opportunities. People begin telling you about things you never asked about, because wealth changes your perceived customer value. Someone who has $10,000 might be sold a $100 product. Someone with $10 million might be sold a $100,000 product. And suddenly, every room contains an opportunity, but not every opportunity is good. This is why wealthy people often become extremely skeptical, because the more money you have, the more expensive a mistake becomes. The ability to say no becomes more valuable than the ability to say yes. Stage 11. You start changing too. And here's the part nobody expects. Eventually, the biggest change may not be how other people treat you. It may be how you treat yourself. You stop needing certain things. You stop buying things to impress people. You stop caring as much about what strangers think. You realize that a $2,000 dinner doesn't necessarily make you happier than a $20 meal with someone you love. You realize that a bigger house creates more maintenance. A more expensive car creates more attention. A more luxurious lifestyle creates more things to manage. And slowly, wealth stops being about buying more. It becomes about controlling more of your time. You can leave the job. You can take the afternoon off. You can spend a month with your family. You can walk away from a bad deal. You can say no. You can wait. You can choose. And that's when you discover what wealth actually bought you. not stuff, options. The final level. Eventually, you reach a strange point. You don't want people to know you're rich. You don't need them to know. You don't want special treatment. You don't want constant requests. You don't want people assuming you're smarter. You don't want people being impressed by your bank account. You just want to know that the people around you like you for you. So you stop showing it. You dress normally. You live below your means. You keep your investments private. You stop explaining your financial decisions. And from the outside, almost nothing looks different. But internally, everything is different. Because you now have something most people spend their entire lives trying to obtain: the ability to walk away. Walk away from a job, walk away from a bad deal, walk away from a toxic relationship, walk away from an unnecessary purchase, walk away from someone else's expectations. And that may be the most misunderstood part of becoming rich. People think wealth gives you the ability to buy anything, but the deeper form of wealth is the ability to say no and not be afraid of what happens next. Ending. So how do people treat you after they realize you're rich? Some will respect you more. Some will ask you for help. Some will become jealous. Some will become inspired. Some will try to sell you something. Some will disappear. And some people won't care at all. Those last people may be the most valuable ones, because real wealth isn't discovering who treats you better after you become rich. It's discovering who treats you exactly the same. The people who still call when they don't need anything, the friend who doesn't care what your car costs, the family member who never asks how much is in your account, the person who celebrates your success without measuring their own life against it. Those relationships are worth more than money. Because money can change your lifestyle, it can change your options, it can change the way strangers see you. But the people who genuinely know you, they should still see the same person. And if you ever become wealthy, that's probably the one thing worth protecting more carefully than your money.